Hey guys, alright, we're back. Unfortunately last night my battery died while I was assembling these. So you don't get to see me struggle bussing with these spiral lock clips. I had a pretty tough time with them. But I did finally get it kind of figured out, so it's a little bit easier now. I'll have to kind of go through that with you maybe on the next build. If there is a next build, hopefully there's a next build. Because I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. But yeah, so it was a pretty tough time trying to get it figured out. The first one took me like an hour to get in, and then it was progressively easier after that. And then by the time I got to the second side, it took a couple minutes for each one. So yeah, it was pretty tough, and I did kind of figure out a rhythm on it, so I'll definitely try to show that to you guys next time. But now it's time to assemble our ring packs, and then the pistons will be pretty much ready to go in the motor. So then we'll flip over to the motor and we'll start going through that. So let's go ahead and get these ring packs assembled. So some of the rings, it's okay to spiral cast onto the piston. And by spiral cast, that just means you can take the ring, put it on, and then just kind of twist it in. So that's spiral casting. Okay, so some of them it's alright to do that. Others, you want to have your assembly tool. And then the big thing with you know what? I think the oil, yeah, okay. The oil ring actually needs to go on first. So what I mean by that is the oil ring, actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it has these little indents in the back. So when you put this together, it's like magic rings. Your bottom and top ring are actually gonna sit inside those little indents. So you need to do the wavy ring first and then put these on. And when we assemble these, there is an orientation that you want to keep. So again, on Summit's little assembly guide here, you've got your orientations. So you don't want any of your gaps to line up in the same orientation. You want everything kind of spread out, so that's going to keep you from losing compression through your ring gaps. So let's see, front of engine. So we're going to assemble these to where our bottom oil ring is going to be about right here. Top oil ring is going to be about right here, and then we'll put the wavy ring kind of up here somewhere, and then our second ring and our top ring. So And then there's other rings that you don't want a spiral cast on. So for those, you want to use your ring compression or ring installation tool. So what this does is it opens your ring safely so that you can put it in the piston. Okay. Just like a that. And then for that ring, you just want to make sure that you've got it oriented properly, because it's the one that has the groove in it. So again, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but our second ring is shaped like this guy. It's got a little notch on the bottom, so you just want to make sure that that notch is facing down. And then the first the first ring just goes on top. And we want that one 180 out from the second ring. Just like that. And then let's make sure we don't have any dog hair on there. Cool. There it is. That is our first piston. So again, we want to make sure that all of our gaps are offset. So we've got our oil ring gap up here, bottom ring, top ring, second ring, first ring. So that should be the proper orientation for everything. So I'm going to go ahead and bust the rest of these out, and then I'll come back to you. pistons are ready to put in the motor. So, time to move to the engine, and we'll go through that, clean it up real quick, make sure the bores are clean, journals are clean, bearings are clean, and then we'll put the bearings back in, put some lube on there, drop the crank in, make sure the crank's clean, then drop it in. Yeah, so let's get you over here. Okay, to clean this, got some brake cleaner, and shop towels. So I'm just going to use up some of the odds and ends cans of brake cleaner that I have, and I'm actually going to put some gloves on because this stuff it's not great. Okay, I'm going to do these one at a time just so I don't get anything mixed up, because we want to keep all the bearings in the same place so that we know that our clearances are exactly how Lingenfelter measured them. So we'll slide this guy out, and then I'm going to clean this surface, clean the bearing, put the bearing back in. And we are using Cleveite stock sized bearings, just in case anybody's curious. In. There's a little tab on the bearing, so when I put them in, I put the tab in first, and then I just rock the bearing down. The thrust bearing's a little bit different. You just got to kind of pull that straight out because it's got the thrust bearings on the sidewalls, so you can't rock it. So you just gotta kind of get under it and just spin it out, kind of. Okay, so the main journals are clean. So now we're going to grab the crank. We're going to clean that up real quick. And then we'll lube the block, set the crank in. Now, the guys over at Lingenfelter said that they were really impressed with the kit that Summit put together. I think they did a little bit of research and they found out, you know, these are actually Wiseco pistons, just rebranded for Summit. And I can't remember what he said the rods were, but they were also really good forged rods that all the pistons came in identical. They didn't have to do any weight matching on those. All the rods came in identical. They didn't have to do any weight matching on those. So when it came to balancing the rotating assembly, it was really easy for them. They set up all the weights, and then it sounded like they actually had to add just a little bit of weight to the front and just a little bit towards the back. It looks like they also welded my reluctor wheel on for me, which is awesome. Lingenfelter, if you guys did that, thank you, appreciate that. That's freaking sweet. So that's one less thing I'll have to worry about, you know, happening in the future, is that reluctor wheel coming loose and screwing up the timing. So we're gonna go ahead and get the journals all cleaned up. They look really clean as it is, and I just unbagged it, so I don't think I'll have any issues there. Oh, they even put a key in the crank for me already, so the key I got from Texas Speed is just a spare now, so cool. And then we're also gonna press in or tap in the pilot bearing before we put it in there, just so we don't mess with the thrust bearing trying to install that. So we'll go over that real quick. Pilot bearing. So there's a difference between a pilot bearing and a pilot bushing. Both of them look kind of like this, right? The bearing actually has roller bearings in the center of it and a seal towards the front. The bushing is just a solid cylinder or tube, I guess, of like brass or steel or whatever. I think they're mostly brass or bronze usually. So if you want a specific style, the bearing has the bearings, the bushing is just solid. So I don't know if there's a benefit to either or, but I ordered the bearing. And that just presses into the back side of the crank. And you want to make sure that you do it a specific way. So the seal is going to be to the front. There's also a fairly large radius on the front, and then it's mostly flat on the back. So if you ever have to remove this, they make a tool that goes through the center and expands open, and it's like a L shape. And if you put this in backwards, it's going to slide off of that radius. So you need it in properly so you can get it out properly. I got that started. Now I'm going to take a socket. And a mallet. In the press to get it out. And more use something a little bit more stout. That worked better. Okay, and when you put that in, you just want it to be flush with this counterbore here. So you got this counterbore here, and then there's a smaller diameter in there for the bearing to go into. And by the way, this is just for manual cars. If you have an automatic, you don't need to worry about this. So when you press that in, I used a slightly bigger socket, so that way as I was tapping it in, the socket hits on that counterboard and stops it from going any deeper. So that keeps it flush to the bottom of that counterboard. So now this is all pretty much ready to go into the motor. So we'll get the bearings lubed up here real quick. Just one more quick wipe down on this guy. And then ultra slick. And we'll do one more quick wipe down over here. I'll bring you back over to the motor. All right, so for this, you want to be super careful. Get the crank in here, and you don't want to ding up the bearings. So you want to make sure your fingers are out of the way. And there it is. Give it a light spin. You don't want to spin any of the bearings when you do this, but you want to make sure that it spins freely and it's not like bound up or anything. So with every step of assembly, you want to make sure that it spins freely. So now we can go ahead and get the studs in, and then we'll clean up the caps, get those lubed, and then we'll start getting that put together. So, all right. I can't wait. Okay. Alright, so ARP has some nice assembly instructions here. Oh, hey, you got ARP stickers too. Right. Stickers! Love having stickers. Let everybody know what you got. Okay, so ARP has nice assembly instruction here. So we got the front of the motor. You know, front, that way, front, that way. It's the front. So it gives you your torque sequence, and then it gives you your torque spec. So we want to torque these down in stages. 3 equal steps to the specifications listed below with ARP, ultra torque, fastener, assembly lube. Inner studs, 60 foot-pounds. 60 foot-pounds on the inner, 50 foot-pounds on the outer. The side bolts are 20 foot-pounds, and then the windage tray nuts, pull the windage tray nuts, are 28 foot-pounds. Cool. And you do it in 3 stages, so we'll do probably 20, 40, 60, and then we'll let it sit, and we'll retorque it to 60 in like a day or 2, just to make sure. And then 50. Cool. And then on the side bolts, you use a little bit of sealant under the head to seal the block, just in case any oil does get between the cap and the block and then into the opening. And so you just put a little bit of sealant underneath the head and then seals it all up. Okay, so there are 2 different length studs. We have a long and a short. Okay, so the long studs are the inner stud, and the short stud are the outer stud. Why it's like that, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. So anyway, we want to make sure these are nice and clean before we do any pre-assembly here. Now, one thing to note, there is a difference between the bearing that goes in the block and the bearing that goes in the cap. If you noticed earlier, I didn't show it to you, but the bearing in the block has a groove and a couple holes in it. So that's the block bearing, and then the cap bearing is just solid. So there's no grooves, there's no holes or anything. So you want to make sure you get that assembled correctly as well. And we'll put some lube on there. Kurt. And then you just want to make sure you have your orientation correct. So for this one, you see how it kind of hooks to the right there, or my right, your left. That's going to go towards the inside of the block. Want to rotate that, make sure it rotates freely. I'll go to the next one. Hey, how's it going?
I'm Todd. I live down here.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to come see what you're doing to your car.
Building a new motor. Oh yeah. Went with had all this one in it. The guy blew it up. Took it to Lingenfelter, had him go through it, and the cylinders were all jacked up. I got the piston in the stuff over here.
It's pretty.
You like it?
Yeah. Should be blue though, not red.
Well, the car's red, so I'm painting it red.
That's weird.
You're weird.
Did you decide to undo Kirky?
Yeah, he whines less when he's not chained.
Oh. So you're just annoyed with him?
Yes.
Yeah. It stinks in here really badly.
That's the break point.
Have fun dying of fumes.
That's why the doors are open.
I'm still dying in here.
No, I'm lying.
I feel like
You
it.
look pretty alive.
I don't know what you're talking about. Like, nobody loves me anymore.
Again, on the end cap, you want to make sure that you slide it on there with the correct orientation. You want the shoehorn going towards the inside of the block. I'm gonna need to get a socket for these guys. I have a 15 millimeter and a 17 millimeter 12-point P12, but I do not have a 16. I'm gonna make a trip into town for that. But we're gonna go ahead and get the inner caps, the inner nuts torqued to our first setting. We're gonna go with 20, 40, and then 60. So we're gonna torque those to 20, and then we're gonna run into town, get the socket that I need for those, and then we'll finish this up. Alright, so that's going to be it for the moment. I got to go get a socket, so